Welcome everyone to another episode of Exploring Concept Art with me, Jason Etienne. So this week we are exploring the use of creating concept art using photographs mainly, with a little bit of drawing, but you could use silhouette. There are stock kind of silhouettes you can get online for free, I believe. So yeah, so away we go. So how I started this is, first of all, get the elements that you need, the photographs. So this has got landscape, it's got some sky in it, some rock textures, things like that. And I loaded all these up into Photoshop. And really just start laying the scene. Always start from the background. You see, I just put a little border on there. It's a kind of, it's not strictly 16 by 9. It's a little bit kind of narrow than that, almost going into CinemaScope. But yes, always start off with the background, and I've just started sort of laying in some clouds, making some adjustments with brightness and contrast. I'm using the eraser tool here, just to kind of take away the edges. Start using the gradient tool just to kind of add a bit of a hue to the top, contrast in colour, so blue and orange, and then there's a little bit of black in the corner there. Again, just creating contrast. This is recurring words that I tend to kind of use in my tutorials, creating contrast. And then I'm laying in a little bit of a landscape. So we've got some landscape in there already, but I'm putting another bit of landscape in there. So you always want to kind of work from the back to the front. So we've got the background, then we've got a little bit of midground. You always make that darker. Background light, midground, a little bit darker, and then the foreground, a lot darker still. It just creates this illusion of depth. So I didn't really have anything in mind when I was making this. I just thought kind of alien planet. I was thinking also kind of distant planets. But apart from that, I was kind of really just happy just playing around, using the smudge tool to sort of create these, I don't know really what they are, the kind of towers, or maybe old ancient monuments. Maybe they're kind of relics from another time on some alien planet, from some, you know, extinct religion or something like that. You know, again, it's just open to interpretation. Put a little bit of a suggestion of some kind of river or lake or some kind of water in there, and yeah, and then sort of working on really just getting the basics in. So I'll kind of drag this rock texture in there, and as you'll see, I'm kind of put it in there, warp it, pull it around. I even put a sort of artistic texture on there. I put like a sort of dry brush effect, again just sort of taking it out of that kind of photographic kind of feel, more to a kind of illustrative feel. So again, feel free to kind of drop stuff like this in. There's a kind of a sort of a belief with many people who kind of you know who sort of start learning about concept art, that, you know, if you're using photographs, that's cheating. That's untrue. I worked on many major movies, and a lot of the concept guys that I work with use photographs. It's they're used for expediency. So although they are kind of works of art, they are functional. So whether this was a design for a game level or for a movie, the emphasis is on expediency, functionality, just something that that can be used for pre-visualization. So yeah, so I've created a little bit in the sort of this kind of peak there. You can see on the left in the foreground, sorry, in the midground, and then in the foreground I've got another kind of rock texture, and this time it's a lot darker. So I've got that as a kind of place where I'm going to put my character. Next, I came on to this satellite photo of some landmass. Now it's got some bits on it that I had to kind of clone out. So it's kind of like crosshairs and some arrows. So I'll clone those out, And then I do use the circular marquee tool. I put that on there and use spherize, which is in filter, distort, filter, distort, spherize. And I've sort of spherized that bit of land so it kind of curves it around, but it's not perfect. So I had a little bit of dark there, a little bit of light on the other side, and the results are quite quick. You can kind of get quick results with it that are quite effective. And I do a bunch of stuff with this. I kind of add a bit more kind of colour at the bottom, a little bit of kind of like the light bounced up from the land, and I kind of just changed the opacity just so it's not so strong. I decided to kind of keep the kind of crisp edge to it because I quite like that. So it's quite, it's almost like it's in the other planet's atmosphere. And then I put another planet in there just again for contrast, for balance, for composition. Did the same thing again, put a little spherize and then a little bit of dark, a little bit of light. But this one's a kind of strange planet. It's going to have this kind of beam of light emitting from the bottom. Reason unknown. It's just adding a kind of strange element to this picture. So I was just playing around with the different hues, because of course in Photoshop you can make things red, purple, green, orange, you name it, if you go into hue and saturation. So yeah, so I'm just using the Polygonal Tool, however you pronounce it, and yeah, just putting this kind of beam of light in there, and then I use a soft brush to just kind of give it that kind of hazy look, almost like like a sort of lightsaber. We've just kind of got that haze around it. But what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of putting the using the Polygonal Tool and taking it around the rocks, because I know that there's going to be a lot of kind of residue from my brush, and I don't want it interfering with the background. So I use this, so this kind of planet, whatever it is kind of blasting down to the other planet, and you can see there it's not interfered too much with the stuff in the background. I will continue to work into that, but in the meantime it's not affected it. Do the same thing with the foreground. I just use the Polygonal Tool, go around it just so it doesn't affect it, and then just create a little bit more haze. And just stopping every once in a while just to kind of have a look, have a little bit of a tweak. Use the smudge tool again, create some more peaks and move some of this light around that's kind of been used to kind of fold it back into the picture, so it shows that it's like the light's kind of being bounced around in the environment. Next I started creating some stars. Now how I did this was I created a few, copied them, pasted them down, shrunk them, copied them, so I sort of multiplied them exponentially, then pressed like Control E all the way down to combine them, and then use that layer again, so everything's kind of exponential, times 2, 4, 6, 8, or it's 8, 16, 32, doing it that way. So so you can do things relatively quickly. Put in some larger stars in there, and then I've duplicated the layer and put a blur, Gaussian blur, on there just to make the stars a little bit more hazy. One important thing is always save your work. I got very nervous towards the end. Thought, oh my, Lord, I can't lose this. So I just saved it just in case. And just doing some little tweaks now. I've put this kind of like a gradient tool in the corner there, and this kind of pink tinge. So just give everything a kind of slightly kind of cosmic kind of feel. Yep. And played around with some stuff. Not all of it works. You can see I'm using the kind of marquee. I started kind of using the not marquee, the lasso tool. Some first attempts there didn't work, and then I sort of had this idea of some kind of character, possibly an alien, possibly human. I'm doing it larger than it's going to be, just so I can put a bit more detail in there. And I've got this kind of sense of it being a kind of possibly human, but it's been wandering this kind of landscape for a while, so it's kind of got this shawl which is all a bit kind of shredded, and it's been blasted by sand and that kind of thing, so it's looking a bit worse for wear. So almost like a kind of nomad, kind of a sort of sci-fi kind of nomad. This is kind of what I had in my head when I was doing it. So it's kind of got almost like kind of sackcloth kind of. I don't know if anyone's seen the film Elysium, but there's the bad guy in there. Is it Kruger? I can't remember his name. And he's kind of got all these implants, and he's kind of got this. It looks like a kind of a sack, you know, as a kind of shawl. It's all kind of bitty and smelly and stringy, and you know, so quite like that idea of kind of combining, you know, kind of body armor, but having this kind of kind of how do you describe it? It's that kind of contrast of kind of, you know, old kind of cloth and kind of tech. Anyway, so I've played around with some ideas there. I thought, oh, I'll give him kind of some kind of blaster type thing. I took that away, and I think then I went on to his left hand and put like a blaster in there, and I just wasn't happy. It was kind of looking a bit weird. And I ended up abandoning it in the end. I just kind of, again, just playing around with it. Again, started playing around with a space helmet, which I did come back to. I did leave that in there. But yeah, so don't be afraid to experiment. Play around. Try some things out. It's not always going to work. Now, if you do struggle with figures, you want to think about just going online and have a look at silhouettes. See if you can find anything that, like, you know, human silhouettes, and as long as it's not copyrighted, take one of those and just use it. Use the magic wand, separate it so you've got the silhouette, and use that, work into that, or just put it on its own. It's always good when you're doing environments just to put a figure in there for scale. Just it really kind of offsets the picture. It gives it some sense of scale, dimension, also composition. You know, putting a figure in there just sort of shows. Now, whether this was for a film or for a video game, just putting characters in there gives it, it grounds it. It gives the viewer some sense of, like, okay, so this is the environment, and this is what a character would look like within that environment. Yeah. So even if it's a silhouette, I decided to kind of just go a bit beyond silhouette here, and I started to kind of put this kind of backpack, maybe some breathing apparatus. Sort of thing on the back there, some kind of filtration system. Again, I kind of put these kind of blaster in the hand. I wasn't happy with it in the end, so I think I ended up sort of taking it away. Just seemed a little bit obvious, and also it looked a bit weird as a silhouette. It's like, what is that? His hand? It's kind of this sort of strange oblong hand. So I felt like it really wasn't working out, so I took that away, shrunk the character down. And then played around with the legs a little bit, and of course, because you got this light coming from the planet, I decided to also play around with putting a bit of the soft brush and a bit of light in there. I seem to recall before I did that, though, I had this idea of having putting a spaceship possibly to the sort of right. So there's a couple of things that were going on. One is I was kind of just playing around with the light pollution from the blast, but also this idea of maybe having the character like as if it's kind of stepped from a ship, you know. So so I had this idea of kind of creating this kind of dome to put it into the onto the right hand side, and again I sort of abandoned it. It just seemed like I quite like the peaks at the right of the character in the distance, and this thing that I started creating here, it seemed like it sort of interfered with it, and I wasn't very happy with it, so I think I ended up just completely abandoning that. And yet, after all that, yeah, again, I come back to kind of maybe put in a ship. So I kind of like abandoned it, sort of came and then did away with it, and then sort of came back to it again. Well, maybe I could just have a little bit at the side there. Maybe I could use that dome bit again and work it into it. And I thought, no, just let it go. Let it go. It's working as it is. It's absolutely fine. So, don't bother with it really. So, and so that was pretty much it. That was pretty much the rest of the picture. I was quite happy with it. I put my name in there, and just kind of left it. One of the difficulties when you're doing pictures, and most artists will know this, it's knowing when to let go. And this is always a very tricky part of knowing when to let go, and it's really for you to decide. Really, you'll know when. You know, one thing you've got to be careful is doing too much. You can say a lot by saying very little, and if you say too much, you can actually you can spoil it. You know, so you want to make sure you to use an expression. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Over egging the pudding. It's an old English expression, but it runs true here. You know, you don't want to put too many ingredients into your picture. But well, that's pretty much it. So hopefully that was helpful. Feel free to leave any comments. If you've got any questions about how it's created, feel free to drop me a line. But apart from that, hopefully it was helpful. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you next time. Okay, bye.